Hello everyone, and welcome to the channel. Before we dive into today's story, we just wanted to take a quick second to say thank you all for watching. We truly appreciate your support. If you're new here, please consider subscribing, it's totally free, and hit the notification bell so you never miss out on our latest stories. Now, with all that said, let's jump straight into the story.
Rudgate is a village many forget, a forgotten crease in the rolling moors of North Yorkshire, shrouded more in mist than memory. It lies 3 miles from anywhere significant, its cottages hunched like old men against the wind, its people quiet, tight-knit, and wary of strangers. They don't speak much of the past in Rudgate, especially not about St. Mary's Church. And never, about the woman they call the Bell Witch. They say she walks after dark, cloaked in sorrow and clinking chains. They say she was hanged for witchcraft long ago, though innocent, and now roams the church grounds, bound to the bell tower that condemned her. And if, on a cold, windless night, you hear the bell ring 3 times, death is already walking toward you. Thomas Lyle didn't believe in curses. A historian from Leeds, Thomas specialized in folklore and medieval superstition. He had made a career of dissecting ghost stories, stripping them down to their social and political roots. When he first read about the Bell Witch of Rudgate in an 1891 parish diary, he was intrigued, but unconvinced. Still, intrigued was enough to drive him to Rudgate one September afternoon, determined to separate myth from memory. The villagers weren't welcoming. He rented a room at the Ploughman's Rest, the village's only pub, where the landlord, a stooped man named Roger Blaine, warned him with narrowed eyes. "Don't go pokin' where you're not wanted." "I'm here for history," Thomas replied with a smile. Blaine only muttered, "So was she." St. Mary's Church stood on a low hill outside the village, surrounded by twisted yew trees and moss-covered graves. Its bell tower loomed above the trees like a finger pointing at the sky, weather-worn and tilting slightly from centuries of wind. Thomas went during daylight. Inside, the church smelled of damp stone and old prayers. He found the bell tower easily, a narrow, spiraling staircase leading up into shadow. The bell itself, massive and green with age, hung on rusting iron. There was no rope attached. He ran his fingers over the inscription. "Let not the guilty walk unpunished." He took photographs, notes, even climbed to the top, where the wind whispered through broken slats. Nothing stirred. No ghost. No wailing. Just silence. That night, in the pub, Thomas met Elsie Carr, the village's retired schoolteacher. She was the only one willing to speak. She was called Agnes Ward, born 1620, Elsie said over weak tea and a stronger frown. Midwife. Herbalist. They said she cursed a child who died of fever. She was arrested. Tied to the bell tower for 3 days before the magistrate arrived. Thomas leaned in. "But the story says she was hanged." Elsie nodded. "They say she vanished before the magistrate came." Bell rang 3 times that morning. No body was ever found. Just the chains. Blood on the stones. And the child's mother died 3 days later. Pale and frozen stiff. Thomas tapped his notebook. "Do you believe it?" Elsie looked him straight in the eye. "I've heard the bell, Mr. Lyle. 3 times. My brother was dead within the week." He kept thinking of the tower, the chains, the legend. At 2:14 a.m., he threw on his coat and walked out into the moor fog, his torch cutting a tunnel through the dark. He reached the church just after 2:30. The mist clung to the stones like wet fingers. The wind had died. Not a single leaf moved. And then, clear as silver, a bell rang once. Thomas froze. The church bell hadn't moved. He looked up, heart thumping. Bong. A second time. This one louder. Lower. He stepped back, eyes wide, searching for movement, for explanation. Bong. The third ring rolled across the moor like a death knell. Thomas ran. He awoke in his room with dirt on his shoes and blood on his palm, though he didn't remember falling. His notebook lay on the floor, open to a page he didn't write. She walked still. Not for vengeance. For justice. The bell rings for the unrepentant. He tore out the page and tried to shake it off. A trick of the mind. A prank, perhaps. But as the days passed, a creeping unease took root. The bell had rung 3 times. He tried to leave Rudgate the next day. His car wouldn't start. Frustrated, Thomas returned to the church. He climbed the bell tower again, determined to prove it couldn't have rung without a rope. But when he reached the top, he found something new. Chains. Fresh, coiled chains left on the floor. Not rusted, modern. And beneath them, a scrap of cloth. It was part of a dress. Pale linen, old-fashioned stitching, stained with something dark. Footsteps sounded behind him. Roger Blaine stood in the stairwell, holding a lantern. "You've done enough," the landlord said. "You knew," Thomas accused. "You believe this." Blaine's face was ashen. "My great-grandfather led the men who tied her to the tower. It's our burden. She appears when someone comes looking. She's real." Blaine only nodded. "And if she rang the bell for you, ask yourself what justice she's seeking." That night, Thomas stayed awake, watching the church from his window. At 2:17 a.m., the bell rang once. At 2:18 a second time. And at 2:19, he saw her. A figure in white drifting between the gravestones, her form half light, half shadow. Chains trailed behind her, clinking with each step. Her hair was dark as midnight, her face veiled. But as she turned toward the village, Thomas saw her eyes. Not rage. Not sorrow. Judgment. She walked past the pub. Past the bakery. Toward the rectory. Where Reverend Marshall lived. The next morning, the village woke to news. Reverend Marshall had died in his sleep. Peaceful, they said. But Thomas went to the rectory, compelled by something deeper. In the Reverend's study he found records, old ones long buried. Letters from 1623. Writings of guilt. Confession. Reverend Elias Marshall, the Reverend's ancestor, had lied in court. Paid to condemn Agnes Ward. His testimony alone had sealed her fate. The spirit wasn't vengeful. She was meticulous. She remembered. Thomas left Rudgate a week later, car repaired by a mechanic who wouldn't meet his eyes. As he passed the village boundary he looked back. Fog swallowed the rooftops. The bell tower rose through it, stark and solemn. He never returned. But in every lecture he gave afterward, in every book, every article, he included one line. Sometimes folklore is memory carved into stone, and ghosts are simply justice waiting to be heard. He kept the torn notebook page in a frame above his desk. The bell rings for the unrepentant. And every year, on the night of September 13th, the day Agnes Ward vanished, Thomas dreamed of chains. And sometimes, if the wind was still, he heard the soft echo of a bell ringing. Once, twice, 3 times. They still tell the story in Rudgate. Children dare each other to walk to the church after sunset. None go alone. And if you visit, the locals might still offer the warning. If you hear the bell ring 3 times, death will follow. But there's more to it. If you listen closely to the whisper in the yew trees, you'll hear what they don't say aloud. It only rings for those with secrets to hide. Time for the next story. Guys, if you liked that last story, please don't forget to leave a like. Thank you. There are places in England where the land remembers. Kielder Forest, vast and ancient, is one such place. The pines there don't just creak in the wind, they whisper. Locals say if you listen too long, you'll hear your name called from the trees. But even in a place steeped in old stories, one tale rises above the rest. It's about a stone seat half swallowed by moss and shadow, hidden in the deep woods. They call it the Devil's Chair. The rules are simple. Sit in the chair at midnight, speak your deepest secret aloud, and wait. They say the devil will come, wearing the face of someone you trust, or someone you love, and he'll offer you something, or take something. But either way you won't leave unchanged. 17-year-old Jamie Whitlock. He grew up in the village of Burnsford, right on the edge of Kielder, a place of muddy boots and working dogs, where traditions lingered like the morning mist. The Devil's Chair was one such tradition. Every year, a group of local teens dared each other to find it, a kind of twisted rite of passage. Most turned back before reaching the clearing. A few claimed to sit, mutter something dumb, and run home laughing. But not all came back the same. One boy, Liam Foster, stopped speaking for a week. A girl named Rosie Allard was found wandering 5 miles away, barefoot, crying blood. Still, Jamie laughed at it. Old woods. Old rocks. Old lies, he told his friend Cal. Which is why, on a dare, he agreed to go. It was late October, cold enough that breath fogged in the moonlight. Jamie, Cal, and a girl named Tasha Muir, fierce, clever, and not one to back down, slipped into the forest at 11:10 p.m. armed with torches, a compass, and a bottle of cheap vodka. They followed an unmarked deer path into the black night. You sure it's real? Jamie asked, half joking. Tasha shrugged. They say the chair's carved from an ancient stone, older than the Romans. Older than this forest. Yeah, and the devil's just sitting there waiting for kids with too much Red Bull. They laughed. Nervous, dry laughter. At 11:52, they reached the clearing. It was smaller than expected, a circular glade with no wind, no sound. Even the trees seemed to hold their breath. And there it was, a chair of black stone shaped roughly like a throne. Worn smooth. Flecked with lichen. Cold even without touching it. It had no carvings, no symbols, just presence. Go on then, Cal said, nudging Jamie. Be the legend. Jamie snorted and stepped toward the stone. As he got closer, he felt it, a pressure like walking into deep water, a ringing in his ears, the sense of being watched by something too large to comprehend. Still he sat. The stone was freezing. It bit through his jeans. The clearing dimmed like clouds passed over the moon, but when he glanced up, the sky was clear. Say it, Tasha whispered. Jamie hesitated. His throat tightened. He hadn't thought of a secret. Not really. But one rose unbidden. A truth he never told. I wished my brother had died in that crash instead of me. Silence. Cal shifted. What did you say? Jamie blinked. Nothing. He stood. The moment passed. The forest exhaled. And nothing happened. They walked home, half disappointed, half relieved. We should have brought a Ouija board, Cal joked. That chair's just a rock. Tasha didn't laugh. The next morning, Jamie woke with a nosebleed. It stained his pillow bright and fresh. He barely remembered his dream, only the sound of footsteps pacing just outside his window. He told himself it was nothing. But that day something changed. It began with shadows. At first, he thought it was just stress, odd shapes at the edge of his vision like someone ducking behind a tree. Then came the smell, burned paper and salt. It lingered on his clothes, his bedsheets. And his reflection wasn't quite right. It blinked too late, smiled a second too long. Then the stranger appeared. Jamie saw him in the corner shop. A tall man in a black coat standing by the milk fridge. His face was blurry, not hidden, not hooded, just unfocused like a photograph taken mid-movement. The man turned to him and said, "It's not your brother who's missing. It's you." Then vanished. Jamie dropped the milk. That night, Jamie demanded answers from his mom. She looked at him with tear-glassed eyes, sat him down at the kitchen table, and told him the truth. Jamie had a twin, named Jack. There had been a crash when they were 5. Jamie had survived. Jack had not. But in Jamie's mind, it was the other way around. He remembered himself in the hospital bed. Remembered Jack going home, laughing, growing older, living Jamie's life. It wasn't memory. It was a trade. In the middle of the night, Jamie walked back into Kielder Forest. No compass. No flashlight. The forest welcomed him like an old friend. He reached the clearing at exactly midnight. The chair was waiting. And someone was sitting in it. It was him or close. Same face. Same voice. But colder. And calmer. His reflection perfected. "Hello, Jamie," it said. Or should I say Jack? Jamie didn't speak. "You told the truth," the double said. "And that gave me shape. Secrets are currency here. What do you want?" Jamie whispered. The devil tilted his head. "I already have what I want. But you asked for something you didn't understand. You said you wished it was him. That wasn't a lie. That was a bargain." "No," Jamie said, voice shaking. The devil smiled. "You lived his life for 12 years. You wore his name. Took his mother's love. All because a chair in the woods heard your wish." Jamie backed away. "I want it undone." "You can't undo truth," said the figure in the chair. "But you can offer another." The wind howled suddenly, loud and sharp, as if the forest itself gasped. The devil stood. Jamie fell to his knees. "Please, take me back. Let him live." The figure smiled. "Then sit. Speak your new truth. Offer me something deeper." Jamie hesitated, then climbed into the chair once more. He looked up at the sky, at the stars, and whispered, "I don't deserve the life I lived. Take it. Give it to him." The devil's smile widened. The forest blinked. They still tell the story in Burnsford. Not in the open. Not loudly. But among the trees in the forest's breath, the name lingers. The devil's chair. And those who walk too deep into Kielder, those who carry secrets too heavy for the soul, are warned. Be careful what you confess. The devil doesn't take lies. Only truths. And he never gives without taking. Time for the next story. Guys, if you liked that last story, please don't forget to leave a like. Thank you. They told her not to buy the house. Not in so many words. The agent had been all smiles but too quick, too rehearsed. The paperwork glided past with unnatural ease. The price was ridiculous for central London. 3 bedrooms, Victorian architecture, marble fireplace, even the original copper bathtub. A suspicious dream. Still, Eliza Carrington signed. She needed a new start. The theater company had folded. Her partner was gone. Her days passed in silence, and the house, sitting solemnly on Greystone Row, had called to her like a stage waiting for its star. The first mirror was in the foyer. Tall, ornate, and crusted with age, it leaned against the wall across from the staircase. She had left it untouched, more out of instinct than design. There was something about it, its warped glass, its way of reflecting the space with a slight, almost imperceptible delay. As if the world behind it moved just a half-second too slow. That's when she saw him. The man in the mirror. It started 3 nights after she moved in. Eliza had returned from the grocery store, arms full of essentials, and paused in the foyer to adjust her grip. Her eyes flicked to the mirror and froze. He stood behind her. A tall, dark figure. Motionless. No face. No features. Just a black silhouette that felt wrong. She spun around, heart hammering. Nothing. She laughed, uneasy. Probably a coat rack. Or her own coat. Shadows. Tiredness. Ghost stories that lingered in old homes like dust. But the next night he was there again. And the next. Always behind her. Always just before she turned around. He never moved. Never made a sound. Just stood as if watching her. She covered the mirror with a sheet. The dreams came next. They began with whispers, distant like voices in another room. Then she began seeing flashes, red velvet curtains, gas lamps flickering, rows of empty theater seats stretching into shadow. She stood on a stage, alone. A man watched her from the front row, but his face was obscured by the dark. Eliza. She would wake in a cold sweat, the sheets twisted around her legs. Sometimes she found her bedroom door open, even though she was certain she had closed it. She Googled it. That's when she found it. The Man in the Mirror, London urban legend. In old Victorian buildings across London, particularly those with connections to spiritualism and the occult, there are reports of a faceless man appearing in mirrors. He does not move, does not speak. He is only ever seen in reflections and never in the same place twice. They say he is drawn to guilt, to performance, to masks. Once seen, he lingers, until he no longer needs the mirror. Eliza clicked away, stomach tight. It was a story. A myth. The kind of thing theater kids whispered backstage before a midnight show. She wanted to believe that. But then the other mirrors joined in. In the hallway. The bathroom. Her dressing table. It didn't matter where she was, brushing her teeth, walking upstairs, reaching for her coat. There he was. Always standing behind her. Never moving. The longer she looked, the more her skin crawled. She covered every mirror in the house. But reflections are trickier than that. She saw him in the window glass at night. In the kettle. In the puddle outside the front step after the rain. The deeper the shadow, the clearer his outline. She went back to the estate agent. "I just want to know," she said, trying to sound calm, "if anything odd ever happened in the house. You know, before I moved in?" The agent shifted uncomfortably. "There was a former tenant," he admitted. "Actress like yourself. Died here, unfortunately. In the bathtub. But it was ruled an accident." "What kind of accident?" "She apparently thought someone was in the house. Kept telling neighbors. Police never found anyone. She was found with the bathroom mirror shattered." Eliza left without another word. That night, she dreamed she was on stage again. But this time the audience was full. Rows upon rows of people, each one unmoving, faces obscured by darkness. The only visible figure was the man. Standing in the aisle. Watching her. "Eliza," he whispered. She tried to speak, but her voice vanished in the cavernous silence. The curtains closed. She couldn't take it anymore. It had been 3 weeks. She hadn't slept a full night in 10 days. The shadows grew longer. The house felt colder. She heard things, mirror clinks, wood creaks, someone breathing. She decided to smash the foyer mirror. She waited until dawn. Light gave her courage. With a hammer in hand and hands shaking, she approached the covered mirror. Her reflection, or his, waited behind the sheet. She pulled it down. There he was. But this time he was closer. No longer standing far behind. He was right at her shoulder, head slightly tilted as if listening. She screamed and swung the hammer. Glass exploded in a shower of shards. The frame splintered, collapsing like a broken spine. Her scream echoed in the empty house, glass crunching under her bare feet. But something was wrong. In every shard, his silhouette remained. Thousands of tiny mirrors, each reflecting the man in 1,000 different ways. He was everywhere. She ran. Out of the house. Down the street. Into the city. People stared. She was barefoot, bleeding, wild-eyed, but she didn't care. She checked into a hotel and locked the mirror in the bathroom with a towel. She stayed there 3 days. On the fourth she looked. No man. No sado. Just her. She dared to breathe. Maybe it was over. She returned to the house the next morning. The mirror had been removed. She had the pieces disposed of. The house seemed brighter, lighter. Maybe the man had been tied to that specific mirror. Maybe some haunted artifact had carried him. He was gone. She unpacked, cleaned up, and lit a few candles. As she passed the hallway, her reflection greeted her from a sconce mirror she had forgotten to cover. She froze. There he was. But this time he had moved. He wasn't behind her. He was in front of her, inside the mirror, staring directly into her eyes. His face still featureless but somehow filled with awareness. He raised a hand. So did she. No, it can't be. He moved first. She was the reflection. Her breath caught. Her body wouldn't obey. Her heartbeat was inside the mirror. She turned, but in the real world she hadn't. The man smiled and stepped through. The neighbors say Eliza never returned to the theater. Some say they hear music from the Greystone row house, soft, distant, like a phonograph in another room. At night, the lights flicker behind the windows, casting strange shapes across the walls. Occasionally, people walking past at just the right angle catch a glimpse in the front window. A woman, frozen in place, mouth open in a scream that makes no sound. And behind her, in every mirror, the man watches, waiting for the next curtain call. Time for the next story. Guys, if you liked that last story, please don't forget to leave a like. Thank you. There's a stretch of road just outside of Whitmore Hollow that locals avoid after dark. It twists between thick hedgerows and empty fields, dipping into a hollow near the ruins of St. Agnes Church, a crumbling shell of stone with its graveyard long overgrown. They call it Black Hollow Road, and even the bravest lorry drivers take the detour when the sun sets. They say it's cursed. But more often they say this: don't stop for hitchhikers on Black Hollow Road. Martin Hale had never believed in ghost stories. A former London cabbie, he'd taken to long-distance driving after retirement, delivery work, mostly just to keep busy. The road soothed him. The late hours offered quiet. He didn't scare easily. That November night, the wind howled across the moors like a living thing. He was behind schedule, a flat tire on the A47 having cost him an hour. The sat-nav, coldly efficient, rerouted him through rural Norfolk. Black Hollow Road. He didn't know it by name. To him, it was just another narrow country lane, barely wide enough for two cars, swallowed in mist and hedgerow shadow. As he rounded a bend near a decaying stone wall, his headlights caught movement. A figure stood at the roadside, arm outstretched, thumb raised. A young woman, barely more than a girl. She wore a pale coat and had long dark hair plastered to her face by the damp. She didn't look threatening, more like someone stranded, cold and desperate. Martin slowed. Against his better judgment, he pulled over. Cold night to be out walking, he said, rolling down the window. She smiled faintly. Can you take me home? Where to? Barrow's End. Just up the road. He unlocked the door. She slid in without a word. Her voice had a lilting Norfolk accent, old-fashioned somehow, soft and melodic. Thanks, she said. I didn't think anyone would stop. Martin smiled and turned the heater up. You're lucky I came through. She nodded, staring out the window. For a while they rode in silence. The wipers squeaked across the windshield. Rain ticked like fingernails on the roof. What were you doing out there? Martin finally asked. Walking. Middle of nowhere in this weather? I had to get home. Something in her tone made Martin drop it. But the silence felt heavy now, as if something unsaid lingered between them. He glanced in the mirror. She was gone. He slammed the brakes. The van skidded slightly. Heart thundering, he whipped his head around. The seat was empty. Fucking hell. He scrambled out of the van, shouting into the mist, checking the roadside. Nobody was there. No footprints. No sign of anyone. The passenger door was still closed. He stood there, breathing hard, rain soaking into his collar, a chill spreading deep into his bones. Martin tried to tell himself he'd imagined it. He tried to put it down to fatigue or stress. A vivid daydream. But as he climbed back in and started the engine, he heard it. Thank you for the ride. A whisper, soft and clear, from the back seat. He turned slowly. The back seat was empty. Then the whisper again, right in his ear. I died years ago. Martin told no one. Not at first. But the moment haunted him. The girl's pale face. Her voice. The absence where she should have been. A week later he returned to the area in daylight. Drove the same road. Stopped near the wall where he'd seen her. There was an old man walking a sheepdog on the opposite side. "Excuse me," Martin called. "This stretch of road, anything strange ever happen here?" The old man squinted. "You saw her, didn't you?" Martin hesitated. "Who?" The man leaned on his stick. "Girl in a white coat. Thumb out. Vanishes before you get her home." Martin's skin prickled. "She was real?" The old man nodded solemnly. "Yes, what you seen was real. She was a girl named Lorna Bell. Died here, 1978. Hit by a drunk driver right near St. Agnes graveyard. She was trying to walk home from a party. Her parents lived in Barrow's End." Martin whispered, "That's where she asked me to take her." The dog whined. The man spat on the ground. "Folks say she still walks the road looking for a ride that'll get her home. Some say she can't cross over until she makes it. Others say she just doesn't know she's gone." He paused, eyes narrowing. "Count yourself lucky, mate. She doesn't talk to most people." Martin couldn't let it go. He researched the accident. Found an old newspaper clipping in a library archive. "Tragedy at Black Hollow. Local girl killed in hit and run." There was a photo. It was her. Same coat. Same eyes. The crash had happened exactly where he'd stopped. He began returning at night. Driving the same route. Slowing near the spot. Watching for her. Weeks passed. Nothing. Then one night, just as he was about to give up, she appeared. Same pale coat. Same expression. He stopped. She got in without a word. This time he didn't speak. Just drove. When he reached the edge of Barrow's End, she whispered, "This is home." He turned. She was gone. But this time, she'd left something behind. A silver locket sat on the seat. He opened it with trembling fingers. Inside was a photo of her and a small engraving. "Lorna, our little light. 1960 to 1978. Martin mailed the locket to the only Bell listed in Barrow's End, a widow named Margaret, now in her 80s. She wrote back, "Thank you. That was my daughter's locket. She wore it the night she died. Police never recovered it. I like to think you helped her find her way home finally." Martin never saw Lorna again. But he still drives Black Hollow Road from time to time. Just in case. Sometimes he leaves the passenger door unlocked and glances at the mirror, hoping perhaps to see her one last time. And sometimes, when the mist is thick and the moon is gone, he hears a faint whisper, "Thank you for the ride."
Ready for spine-chilling tales that will haunt your thoughts? Subscribe to Forgotten Storyteller for eerie narrations, unsettling mysteries, and haunting stories you won't forget. Hit the bell icon so you never miss a story, because some stories refuse to stay buried. Join us, if you dare,